Well, hello and welcome to the Super Connector show, where I'm delighted to be joined by Kirsten Edmondson, who has held senior technology leadership roles for organisations including the BBC, 3Mobile, Orange, Formica, Newcastle University, BGL Group, Rue and AXA Insurance, along others as well, in the Northeast, across the UK and overseas too. So, Kirsten, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, thanks so much for the invitation. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I've just been commenting on your lovely wallpaper and your setting that you're in as well. Beautiful house that you look like you're in. But I'm going to start off by saying, what is digital transformation?
Digital transformation for me is really about the process of integrating digital technology into all areas of an organization, and also bringing into the organization or developing the skills necessary to make the most of that technology to serve your customers and or your users, and to serve the business. It's about having a customer-centric process, which is supported by often a business model change and underpinned by the introduction of new technologies, whether that's in the olden days, web, more recently, the use of cloud and data, and currently the hot topic, which is AI.
Amazing. That was a brilliant definition. Thank you very much for that. I think it's a phrase, like it seems to have been around for a long time. I don't know, like 15, 20 years, maybe longer. Just people talk about it, but I don't know if people necessarily know what they mean when they say it. They just sort of throw these phrases out there. So
yeah. Well, a bit longer for me. So I started working in digital transformation before the language of digital transformation. So I started building websites for the BBC in 1994, which is, 100 years ago. And that was for them about being interested in new technology and interested in ways in which they could better serve the people who use the BBC, particularly the younger audiences. And back then it was, I know anybody probably under 40 or maybe 35 who's watching this, back then it was a web browser called Mozilla. So it was a grey background. You could underline, bold and align text, and that was pretty much it. You could put an image in and stuff. And then everybody got very excited when a company called Netscape brought out a new browser. So this was way before Google Chrome and Internet Explorer and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But the key thing is it's really about changing the way, back then and even now, it's about changing the way one looks at the operation of business. Because very often business was inside out. We have a product or a service, and our organization is structured about and quite internally focused. So we've got a thing and we're going to push it out. Digital transformation was very much saying, right, well, what does the user want? And then how do we restructure the way that we work and the skills that we have and the technology that we have to take that into account eventually in real time? It's not just we survey our customers once a year or whatever, or we find out, or we look into why sales changed the previous quarter. It's a real-time interaction, and that very often requires big change inside an organization, whether they're commercial or not-for-profit or government or whatever. And it's also, for me, about working smarter so that the machines take the heavy lifting of the things that the machines are good at, and human beings are freed up to do the things that only they can do.
Yeah, love it. It's funny when you're talking about back in the 90s. So I was at university in 95 to 98, and I remember a lecturer saying to us, in the future, all of these books will be on the information superhighway, the World Wide Web. And I was like, well, that's never going to work, is it? Like, but how much has changed since then? Like, so like there's constant change and transformation in digital and technology, isn't there? Like we were using, it was mostly DOS based, and then we were using Netscape Navigator and stuff, but like Windows 3.1 or something. Do you remember that? God. And then when I left university, my first job was working for Sage software company, and they were still sending out floppy disks through the post, sending out like 9 or 10 floppy disks for an upgrade once a year.
Yeah.
Then they moved on to CD-ROM. Well, that was like revolutionary.
Yeah.
And then they moved on to the cloud, but for a long time they were cloud deniers as well.
Well, yeah, and it's confronting, and I think because of the pace of change in tech, once upon a time, something came along in business or in industry, and a change had to be made. Fax machines were invented, but then that was sort of it for a while. There wasn't the rapid pace of change that we get now. And anybody who reads the regular press or the tech press, there's that great infographic about the pace of change and how it took us. Industrial revolution took decades to have an impact, and then the internet was made available, and then the web was made available, and then cloud and data services were made available, and each of those cycles gets shorter and shorter. And now they're saying the AI revolution is going to take a couple of years, and it will change everything. So that the pace of change is significant, because it can be terrifying, frankly, if you're in your personal life and in your work life, about how there is the only constant and the only thing you can rely on is that it's going to change. There is no steady state now. Change is the norm, and for a long time change was something that came along periodically rather than daily.
No, there's so much been going on. It's still happening all the time, isn't it? And we'll talk a bit more about how things have really speeded up and around AI in a moment as well. So some of the things you talked about, I know that you're really focused on how digital transformation or how technology can be used to create value and save time and waste less money and grow your business or organization without negatively impacting your people. So do you see that? Is that common, or does that?
I think so. I've definitely experienced and been aware of when the first big wave of digital transformation sort of kicked in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was very much about the technology for a lot of organizations. And, there's that old phrase of, it's people, process, and technology. But what I saw a lot of, especially in the first kind of dot-com booms and things, was that order was reversed. It was very much about technology and then changing some process, and the people were very much at the bottom of the list of considerations. There was a lot of money to be made, and yes, the tech is really complicated, but for me, the most complicated systems that we deal with are human beings. So I don't think that it's always to the benefit of the people in the organization, or even sometimes their users. There's lots of debates about accessibility and about, will your customers or your users, how will they adopt the new technology? And it's wider in society. So you could say, okay, are people who are over a certain age, who are not digital natives, how are they coping with the fact that, you predominantly you don't go into a bank in the high street, there's fewer post offices, so how do you pay your bills if you don't want to go online? How do you get to see your GP if you don't have a device where they're offering virtual GP services, or those types of things? How do you renew your bus pass because you can't walk into a Nexus office anymore at the Haymarket, if for anybody living in Newcastle, because they don't have them. So, and everything's got to be done online or on the phone, and that creates lots of problems. So for me, it's the key to the transformation is, how do we really understand how the tech is going to benefit the people who are going to have to work with it, and also who are going to use it, because what we want ideally is, do you want someone who's working with antiquated systems having to move data from multiple spreadsheets to create the report that the business needs at the end of the week? Can we use tech to automate that, so that person can then sense check it, look for errors, and create the summaries and the insights that they'll have because they're subject matter experts, so that the weight has shifted from human beings doing the that type of thing for them to be adding value. And how much on the converse side, how much user-centered design is done, how much user research is done, and then how much consideration is being given to the group of customers or the group of users who fall outside that nice happy path. What do you do about the people who don't have devices? There's lots of, we could talk for hours about the digital divide and digital poverty in this country. So if you don't have a device, if you don't have enough data, how do you live effectively? So for me, it's making sure that the people are at the top of the priority list, then the process, and then using the amazing tech to serve their needs, and also the needs of the business, which is about delivering value. And in return for that, you get money, or whatever it is, whatever sector that you're in.
Yeah, no, I love that. No, I totally agree with your sentiment and thoughts around that. We'll go into a bit more detail now, but definitely the importance of putting people at the top, because I think that's when it often goes wrong, when the technology is the priority, and it's like people are really pushing the technology as like the savior of everything, and everything's going to be amazing, this future utopia, but how that's actually going to impact the people is the last thing that some people think about. And I mean, again, we'll talk about it in a moment, but like with AI, there's such a push and so much noise around AI, but you've got to say, well, who's going to benefit from this? Really, it's the people behind the technology, and there's a lot of money behind these companies. It's in their best interest to really ram it home and push it to everyone. But when you look at the stats, there's still a relatively small number of people using it. But you would think that everybody's using it, and everyone's having an amazing time, and life's going to be fantastic, and we don't need to work ever again, and all our needs are going to be taken care of. So we just talk about triggers for digital transformation. Like why would an organization want to do this or embark on this if they've not done it before, or going on a new journey in your experience?
So there is the fear of missing out. So everybody's doing it, we have to do it. And I think some organizations have gone into it that's been the trigger. This is the thing, we have to use it. For me, it's about trying to solve a problem. So market conditions have changed. That's a business problem. Customer or user behavior has changed. That's a problem that can be solved. Regulatory environments have changed. Maybe economic conditions have changed, and therefore to remain competitive, an organization needs to do more with the same. So reducing waste, increasing value, but it's really about solving problems rather than doing it because perhaps everybody else is doing it. If all your competitors are doing it, right, then it's something to look at. But what problem are you actually trying to solve, or which group of problems are you actually trying to solve? And that's the trigger. And very often it's about those economic factors, customer behavior, and a desire to be more efficient, to reduce waste and create more value.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I suppose like to scale as well, that any business, if it gets to a certain size, it's going to start creaking at the edges, isn't it? If it's doing things mostly manual or like relying on old systems. So there's a need to embrace or look at how you can use technology to do things better and more efficiently and serve people in a better internal and external. What about when have you ever been in a situation where there's someone senior who just says, "Oh, I've heard about this new technology and I think we should use this," and everyone's like, "Hang on, like
yes,
things are working fine here, but like let's not rush into this new thing." But someone's got a big voice and they're pushing it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think I think most people who work in tech have been in a situation where, whether it's, we need a website or we need a big data project, or why aren't we migrating to the cloud, and AI is a big one. I spoke to someone in my network who's a CTO not long ago, and they said, their CEO is saying, "What are we doing with AI?" And they said, "Well, essentially, what problem do you want to solve? No, just tell me what we're doing with AI. Where are the AI projects?" And so they were having this, so they wanted to be able to announce that they were doing AI, and their senior technologist was saying, "Okay, which problems do you want me to solve? Because there's no point in just doing AI for vanity projects." So yeah, and I think it happens in every industry, and every time there's new shiny things, there's huge opportunity, but there is also, I think, to an extent that, especially because brand and perception is everything. I think, very often there can be a drive to say, we have to show that we are, riding this wave of the new thing, because we want to remain relevant. We need to be seen to be modern and new and an early adopter of these transformative technologies.
Yeah.
And that can often drive pet projects, or in the olden days we called them vanity projects.
Yeah. No, I've definitely seen examples of that. I heard something the other day. I'd not heard this expression. Maybe you have, the SaaS apocalypse. Have you heard that? So apparently there's like loads of SaaS companies that were doing very, very well, but now the market share's fallen massively because then they don't have AI, as they're not AI native, and then investors are just like not interested in it. We're only interested in AI projects. So people are scrabbling around thinking, "Oh, we need some AI. We need to have introduce some AI tools or embed it into this business somehow. Otherwise, we can't raise the next round of investment, or we can't." People are dumping the shares in the company. So it is interesting. Like that's a big problem for some companies. That.
Absolutely. And that is, one of the triggers is that market change. If the money is moving to back, certain types of technology innovation, once upon a time, it moved away from, software locally hosted on tin being sent out by a floppy disk or whatever it was to SaaS. And now it's, from your example, it's moving into you have to be AI. So for those SaaS companies, it's, well, do we just, do we throw money at it and say, do something with AI? Or do you look and say, right, how can we best serve our customers? What would make sense for them in terms of using the data that we've got, creating agents, maybe streamlining some of the functionality in our own system by using this smart AI technology. It's like, right, okay, so let's identify some problems that we can solve. And maybe there are some quick wins, maybe, saying, right, we've got a little chatbot, an AI chatbot who can help you. You can say, yeah, we've now got a roadmap and this is the first bit. And then you buy some time to develop the more impactful things. It's the trigger. Yeah,
it is a trigger.
It's the trigger for change. But really, then it's about how smart do you want to be?
Yeah.
If our investors want to say AI and we need a roadmap, then where's the quick and easy stuff? What's the harder stuff? And how do we fund a roadmap that's then going to embed this into our technology? And, if you've got programs of work and you're delivering a new version, maybe you need to pivot and say, rather than AI being a sprinkle of icing on the top, maybe we really have to pivot and spend a bit more time developing the next version, or developing new microservices or whatever it's going to be to support the AI going into the platform.
Yeah. I think it's definitely, some of it is smoke and mirrors. It's marketing led, obviously, market led and marketing led. So I've definitely seen some people who say they've got AI, but really it's automation, or they've already got a bit of machine learning and they've already got a bit of automation, but they're now calling it AI. So people often get the terms mixed up, either deliberately or mistakenly.
Yeah, I think so. The umbrella term AI, and there are lots of different kinds. So it's everything from the chatbots to the agentic agents. You've got the machine learning and all of the things that are based on like the large language models and so on. So it's like saying, I don't know, cloud. There's a lot of things in that underneath that umbrella term, or digital. There's a lot of things that fall under that. And again, it comes back to, for me, the problem solving, because it could be that having a little automated, because all the simplest terms, AI, you've got an algorithm and it's got, a trigger point, it goes through some steps and then it delivers something at the end. So that might be a customer service bot to help deal with frequently asked questions. So rather than having frequently asked questions on your website like you did in the olden days, you've got a little bot you can talk to. So at its simplest, it can be that. But in the back end, it can be, we've got all of this data around behavior and our services and so on. And so we're building models and we're building agents to transform how we work internally. And that's still an AI project, but you're using different parts of the technology for it. For example, you could be using it for predictive analytics in terms of, helping decision making for where the business wants to go. The people like Microsoft have got the Power Platform which is an automated platform, but there's lots of AI in there. So you can say, right, I've got data in a spreadsheet. I need to do X, Y, and Z with it. And so the Power Platform allows you to use databases, Microsoft Office, Copilot, process automation to transform the way that you do things. And that's AI powered. But in another world, you would call it, well, that's just an automation project. So yes, I think you're right. I think the terms get bandied about. But again, for me, it's about which problems are you trying to solve? And then it's horses for courses. And you can use low code, no code, develop agentic AI agents right through to building or utilizing large language models and so on, and everything in between.
Yeah. I think what you just said there just gets across, like, you can do pretty much whatever you want, but you need to know what you're trying to do. Like going back to if the CEO is saying, where's the AI projects, the CTO needs a bit of guidance there. It's like, well, we could literally do whatever you want, but you need to tell me what you're trying to achieve and why you want to do it, and then I'll come up with the best solution, because there's so much to choose from. Yeah. I use multiple different applications, all cloud-based SaaS products to run our business, and I think they've all got some AI features in it. Some are quite good, some are very good, some are like nothing special, and I don't really use them, but they've all definitely felt the need to introduce some AI element to it, and I didn't necessarily ask them to. It was just sort of there one day. And
well, I think to your point earlier, if that's where the investment money's going, then that's what they need to do. So it may be, the impetus might have come from customers, or the impetus is coming from we have to be seen to be doing it to remain competitive, or to get that next tranche of investment, as you said earlier.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a bit, like, when and how do you get it right? I'm sure you've had lots of very successful projects that you've led, and some maybe less successful, not through your fault, I'm sure. But what do you need to make it work? You talk about buy-in as well. We'll talk a bit about buy-in, the importance of buy-in at different levels.
It's a bit like baking. You need all the right ingredients, and some are in your control and some aren't. So you need to have clarity on what it is you're doing. I'm a big fan of more agile, lean ways of working. So the focus is on value delivery and what it is you're doing, not as much on the how, because the how often changes based on all of the external factors and internal factors that are difficult to control. So, if you start a project and say, we're going to deliver this and follow a very prescribed route. I'm talking mostly about technology and software. If you're doing, pharma or something else, it's different. And then all of a sudden AI comes up. You're a bit stuck if it comes up in year 2, because it's very difficult to pivot if you've got a very rigid way of working. Now, agile is not suitable for everything, but so you have to know what it is, what it is you want to deliver, and then how you're going to measure it. So how you're going to measure the value of the thing that comes out at the end. Is it increase in sales? Is it better traction with your customers? Whatever it is it reduction of time to market? You need to have buy-in throughout the organization. So very often when you embark on these programs, the senior management might be bought in, the people at the front end might be bought in, but the middle management aren't, because they're going to feel the pain of a lot of the changes in the way things are done, in the processing and so on. So there can be resistance there. Or you can have a situation where you've got buy-in from the exec, and they want the organization to change, but they don't want to change. So it's do as I say, not do as I do. So if they want to, I don't know, if in order to make the thing work, there needs to be a change in the way of working, everybody has to be up for the change. So you've got to have that buy-in. The people who are going to be ultimately affected on the front line have to be up for this. So having that buy-in, having that communication, having that regular communication about this is how it's going, and this is how we're measuring that it's going well or not going well, being really transparent about when it's not going well and why. It's not about blame, it's about, we don't live in a utopia. If you're driving along the road and all of a sudden there's a big pothole, very often organizations in their ways of working, a bit like, people get used to driving around the pothole because that's just what you do on this street. And one of the key things for me is to say, well, what if we didn't drive around the pothole? What if we fixed it, or we replaced the road surface, or whatever? So, because that pothole will have a network effect, so buy-in at all levels, the clear communication, the transparency of what's going on, and a really clear view of how you're going to measure what it is you have to deliver, and a constant conversation about how that's going, because the road is never straight, it's zigzaggy and things happen and AI comes up, or Russia invades the Ukraine, or we decide that we're going to bomb Iran or whatever. So things change all the time, which will possibly change the end goal or possibly change our approach. And if without those elements, and without one of those elements, things don't work. You might get a great new platform that delivers some of the value, but you're not really leveraging the value if you haven't had maybe the hard or honest conversations about how that's going to change process. And does that mean that you need fewer people, or does that mean you need more people in one area and less people in another? What does that mean for reskilling? What does that mean for scaling? What does that mean for cash flow and funding? These new platforms can look great, and cloud costs and all that kind of thing, and then you have a global chip shortage because everybody's NVIDIA is sending all of their chips to the AI data centers. So compute power costs go significantly higher for cloud computing. So, and are you also looking at those? Yes, you're going to shift maybe money away from CapEx because you're not buying lots of servers and that kind of thing, but you'll shift it to OpEx. And most organizations I know don't like high OpEx because that's your staff costs and that's your ongoing running costs and all the rest of it. But your cloud computing costs are going to be in there, and they're not static.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question, so I'm rambling a little bit, is you've got to really understand what the outcome is, what the value you want to create. How do you measure the value? Through OKRs, through KPIs, through data metrics. How do you track that? And how do you make sure that it's really transparent? How do you build a culture around that where people have the psychological safety to say, this isn't working? We need to rethink it. We assumed X, Y, and Z, or we were told A, B, and C, but that's now no longer true. and have that really transparent but positive conversation about the stuff that happens, and then have the buy-in, and also, you know, have realistic expectations on budget during and then after.
I love it. Amazing. I love your analogies as well. I love when you talk about bacon and potholes, and you're very good at using the analogies and painting a clear picture of the challenges of doing this. So, do you find that you have to? Well, sometimes you're under pressure to deliver quickly and at pace. You know, that pace is, but you do have to spend a lot of time communicating, or maybe over communicating and making sure everybody knows what's going on. Do you spend a lot of your time doing that? Do you feel like you're like a UN peacekeeper trying to keep all the sides on board and informed, and if you don't do that, is that when it goes wrong?
Yes. It's different depending on the culture of each organization. Early in my career, I worked for France Telecom. They just bought Orange, and I was running a project to deliver a new icon style onto all of the Orange handsets.
Right.
But it was pan-European, so I'm not going to. So it was a bit like the UN, because you know, the French wanted what they wanted, and the British wanted what they wanted, and the Polish wanted what they wanted, and on it went. So, and obviously, and also with design, how hard can it be, right? So it's just a few pictures. Doesn't matter that you've got to, you know, you're designing for small screens and different operating systems and all that kind of stuff. Why can't we have more blue? Well, because that's not our brand colors. So that taught me an awful lot about negotiation. I think my preference, and where I've seen it work really well, is when the communication is, when it's about the content as opposed to necessarily a prescribed set of formats. So you've got to have, you know, dashboards and all of those great things that, you know, show you where the risks are and show you where the issues are and show you progress and that kind of thing. But in complicated organizations, there can be sort of a magnetic pull to it's more important to make sure the documentation is perfect versus really highlighting and talking about the insight that the content of the dashboard or whatever is showing us. So there can be as a project lead or a delivery lead or a program manager, that it's really important for me to show that everything's green. As opposed to feeling safe enough and being supported and encouraged to say, this isn't working. We need to have a proper discussion about how we're going to solve this thing that's kind of bubbling away. It's a bit like, you know, I think project leads are often like swans. You know, you've got to show everything's nice on the surface and you're furiously paddling underneath. So, so that, I think that for me, that's a key element. The pace that you talked about, there are lots of different ways of communicating now. We get bombarded. So it's Teams and it's Slack and it's meetings and it's whatever. Again, I like to use the machines to do the heavy lifting. So software projects, for example, using something like Jira, where you've got real-time dashboards and you can see, and it's pulling data from a micro level. So, you know, how much, I don't know, code's being committed or released or whatever. So those dashboards in real time are a great way to free up the people who are running the deliveries to really focus on the insight and the advice and be able to engage with the key stakeholders to say, we're trending this way, you know, we're going to have a problem here, because you can see from the data that, you know, we don't have great flow here, or there's constant problem, and that what it's showing is there's a bottleneck somewhere else in the organization. And that, to mix all of my analogies, it's usually those bottlenecks, those potholes that you're just used to, that, I don't know, you've got a piece of legacy tech that needs to be very carefully handled, and they can only make changes twice a month. That's the pothole that is then having an effect on something that is high priority. But in say waterfall projects, you don't get that level of clarity of what's going on really at the low level. So real-time dashboards are great for lots of people to see what's going on. Steering groups and things like that are great to engage with the senior stakeholders, but also in big transformation, it's about, I've used town halls and workshops a lot to have Q&As with the people who are going to be directly affected, user feedback groups and all that kind of stuff, to say, this is where we are and this is what's happening. What's your view? How can we use your knowledge, and how can we keep you up to date with what's going on, and also what's coming next, and what does it mean for you? So whether that's internal or external, great user research, really good feedback, human-centered design where you've got those feedback loops, those things are all critical, and you can do them at pace, but you can't do them all at pace.
No. Well, that's what makes you such a good leader, because you take that approach. No, definitely. I think you've highlighted there how the technology should be there to serve the humans, so then they free up their time so they can focus more on the interpretation of what's going on, and that comes with expertise, experience. They can say, okay, well, what does this actually mean? Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the potholes? And then they can fix it. So it's not the humans serving the technology. It's the other way around, which is what a good digital system should be doing. Okay, so and we've talked quite a bit about the importance of people, but I know that's a big thing for you. And how I was going to ask you, how do you get the best out of them to make sure that everyone's on board? Because there'll always be some resistance, there'll always be some people who just don't want this new thing to happen, and the walls are up and they're being difficult, and often that comes from fear because they're worried it's going to negatively impact them. Maybe they're worried they're going to lose their job, or it's going to make their life harder, or their special role in that organization is no longer going to be there. So yeah, how do you get the best out of people?
Another huge question. So
this could be board level as well, though. How do you get the best out of the board as well?
Okay. Part of it comes from experience, and the longer I spend in industry, the more I learn about people and dealing with them. And I definitely haven't got it right in some instances, and in other instances, I feel like I've got it very right. And I say that because I've had the feedback from both of those groups, when I haven't got it right and when I have got it right. And it's a learning thing. And I think all you can do is continue to be open to that learning. So when you've got a team, so at a team management level, it's about understanding who they are and what they're sensitive to and what they're good at and what their potential is, and looking at skills development, looking at incentives, looking at team cohesion, and also creating an environment where it is psychologically safe, where you can say, I'm not happy. I don't like blame cultures. So I don't want to hear that, you know, Bob's an idiot because he supports a different football team or whatever. What I'm interested in is how can we get you and Bob to work together to achieve a particular goal, which is about the value to the business and the value to the customer or the users. Obviously, if there are HR worthy challenges, then there are processes around how one deals with that. But sometimes it can be enough to do some coaching, to put a mentor in place, to do some retraining, and sometimes there are more formal processes. As you go sort of up through an organization, I think a lot of it's about listening. It's about, you know, when you're dealing with peers who may be on board or not on board, it's really trying to understand their point of view and seeing if you can find a way to convey the benefits of the outcome and help people through that change process. Because as you know, it can be anger, denial, and all kinds of things before you get out the other end of that. A big influence is the organizational culture. So again, do you have the psychological safety? Is it are your peers bought in? Are their managers bought in? Because if they're not, then your peers are never going to be. And when you get to exec level, for me, it's about articulating the value and the measurement of the value. This is what you said you wanted to do. This is the value that it's going to deliver. And therefore, this is where we are on that journey. And it's not linear, you know, people go through, I've been through, you know, that change cycle of denial and anger and acceptance and all that kind of thing. So it's not a one and done, but a lot of it is listening to individuals or groups' point of view and being as honest and transparent as possible about their concerns and articulating the value. For me, like I said, the getting rid of the drudge work is often an unforeseen benefit for people. I'm in a unique role and I'm really special is quite challenging. And in those circumstances, I've tried to work with those individuals to show that their value isn't specific necessarily to that piece of tech, but because of the knowledge and the skills they have, and ideally showing them that those knowledge and skills apply to the new world or a broader world and not just that thing. My recent role at AXA, I had two chaps working for me who ran one of the legacy systems which underpinned a significant amount of the day-to-day business, and they'd both been in the organisation for over 35 years. And we were retiring that system, and one of them, and they both just through the process of that, rather than assuming that they would leave the organisation because they were no longer there to support a DOS-based system, I helped one go on a journey into, he became very interested in data and in SQL. So we've done training and all kinds of things, and he moved into a data role. And another and his colleague was more interested in a lot of the new compliance rules. So DORA, which is the European rules around data security and things for financial services companies. Mm-hmm. And because his interest was in process, he became really interested in compliance. And so he moved into that role. So it's not always a case of old tech with surrounded people out the door. They've transitioned and used their skills in other areas. But it's about listening, and it's about trying to articulate the value, and it's about transparency. But sometimes, people no longer fit those roles, and they do exit. So how do you do that in the least worst way?
Yeah, goes back to what you said at the very start. The most complex system, it's humans, isn't it? People are complicated, and there's lots of feelings and emotions and ideas involved in that. And but yeah, if people feel like they're not being listened to, or the views on being heard, then that can come across as defensive and obstructive. But if they understand what the overall mission is, that it's not personal to them, but and get them focused on the mission, and so that everyone can perform to their best and understand their role in that. And if it's all right, it's okay. I've been putting myself on mute because my dog keeps barking, but we've managed to get away with it so far. So, but no, they're really, really good examples that you gave there about people who they could see that what they're working on wasn't going to be needed anymore, but they could see alternatives.
And I mean, there are times when you listen to someone and they're really unhappy, and you don't agree.
Uh-huh.
And it's being a people manager is like everything else. It's evolutionary, and it's trying to find the best way to deal with those situations. And like I said, everybody will have examples of where they've got it wrong, and hopefully examples of where they've got it right. And I'm definitely typical in that.
Yeah. Okay. No, like I say, I think you come across, well, you are a very good leader, very good at what you do. So I can see why you've held all these senior roles. Just want to touch a bit on neurodiversity, because I know that that's something that you're really interested in. And so neurodiversity in the workplace, but also end users and customers.
Yes. So again, one of the, a few years ago, it was all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. DE&I was the big thing. And lots of organizations did lots of things. Some of the ones in the US now have rolled those things back. And the parts of DE&I that particularly resonate with me are around neurodiversity, women in tech, and encouraging people from non-traditional backgrounds into tech. So I tick 2 of those boxes for sure, maybe 3. My son is neurodiverse. I was a governor at his SEND school, etc. So those things are really pertinent to me. So the equity part of the DE&I, I think sometimes doesn't get enough attention. So creating a workplace where, for example, you have to be in the office all the time can be really difficult, say, for some neurodiverse people, if that office environment is, and I'm doing huge generalizations because everybody's got a spiky profile. But if I look at my son and his classmates who are on the autistic spectrum, and many of them also have ADHD, open plan, busy offices are the worst type of environment for them. Their schools are low sensory environments, so noise cancelling headphones and desks that have partitions at the side, so your peripheral vision isn't constantly catching people walking past and so on. Strip lighting is also a huge problem because it flickers slightly, etc. So being aware of the physical environment, really important. It's not just enough to have a guild or a group of other people who maybe match your particular profile. Sometimes the physical environment is a huge barrier. having team leaders and managers who are trained and skilled in the different communication modes. So I worked with a gentleman recently who was super bright, did deep tech with data, but his ADHD meant that if I said to him, right, we've got problem X, Y, and Z, and what I need is for you to look at A, B, and C, so I can talk to 1, 2, and 3, he couldn't process that. So what I'd have to do is to sort of keep all of that and say, okay, there's this problem I want you to look at, and this is the time frame. Come back when you've got that bit. And I would cut the work down, not because he wasn't capable, but if I gave him multiple deliverables, he would get lost in what do I do first. So I learned through working with him that I was very prescriptive about how to communicate with him. I had somebody who was the complete opposite, who wanted to know the whole picture. They wanted to know the ABC, they wanted to know the 1, 2, 3, and then they could make sense of that and figure out a path, a solution. So being able to adapt my style to them was really important. And I think that's one of the things for people managers, is that very often organizations can encourage a neurodiverse workforce, but they aren't necessarily training their people managers to know how to manage those people to get the best out of them. Because it's not pandering, it's about, if you use a software analogy, it's about understanding how to use the software,
Not pandering, it's optimizing, isn't it? It's getting the best out of people. And
exactly. But that might be a fundamental change to a people manager's way of working. So, and that change itself can trigger things and so on. So I think making sure that there's not only awareness, but there are the skills and the support given to the people managers to get the best out of all of their team is really important. Another challenge I see is I did a piece of work a few years ago now about language in job ads. So, there's lots of research to say women, for example, if they have less than 90% of the skills that's in a job, they won't apply. A man, I think the same as 60 or 70%, he will apply.
Right.
So when I was working for BGL, I worked with a local company to look at the job ads and tailor the language to appeal to a broader audience. So we took out a lot of the kind of aggressive verbs and things, so and the aggressive adjectives. So and we talked more about collaboration and cooperation, and to appeal to more women, but also to appeal to maybe those individuals who aren't going to be, the superstar. They like to work in a team. They like to work collectively, etc. Because a lot of the job ads, can be, you read the job description and you're just exhausted by the time, by the time you've read it. And then worked with our hiring team so that we sent out questions in advance, so that, again, those neurodiverse people or people who weren't really experienced at interviewing could think about the answer that they wanted to give, rather than have to have the answer on the tip of the tongue. Because interviewing is a skill, right? It's a technique. If you haven't done it a lot, if you're coming back to work, say after having kids or some kind of caring responsibility, or have been in an organization for a long time, you probably haven't done an interview recently or regularly, so you're probably less able to, come up with a really intelligent answer off the cuff. So we changed the job, the language to make it a bit more inclusive. We sent out questions in advance. We worked with organisations who were trying to get neurodiverse people into work, but also returners for work and people who'd been out of the workforce for a while, to make it as easy as possible to get them to apply. Because that's the thing, if they're not even applying, you're not gonna balance things up. And then once they'd applied, to get through the interview process, it didn't hamper anybody who wasn't neurodiverse and anybody who was good at interviewing, but it focused on that equity. It allowed them to sort of be on the same playing field, so that we could then look at the skills and the culture fit and then pick from a more diverse pool. And that's a really important thing for me, because if you're not even attracting the talent, then how are you going to get it into your organization? I used to have, and the benefit to the organization, there's huge numbers of studies about the benefit culturally, but also in terms of hard cash, about what that diversity of thought can bring to an organization. Mm-hmm. So I had one pair of developers in a team that I had, and on paper, there was no diversity there. They were both young, white, male, British men. However, one had a very expensive education and been to the best schools and the best university. One had left school as soon as he was able and took a low-paid manual role and taught himself in his bedroom. So, on the face of it, they were identical. But because they'd come from such different backgrounds and had very different life experiences, their ways of problem solving were polar opposites. So when I put them together in a pair to develop code, they were unbeatable because they came up with really interesting solutions. And for me, that's the...
that's diversity, isn't it? Like diversity of thought. It's not just
thought, which is what you want. So the life experiences, the neural pathways, and we had a lady who worked with us who was older, returning after having children, and when I put her into the mix, oh my goodness, because she thought of things that nobody else thought of, and added into that mix, it was amazing to see, and also very gratifying. So yes, so I'm interested in how do we tap into those talent pools, those people. We talk about the fact that we've got all of these skill shortages, and there is a huge problem with youth unemployment, but there's also a huge problem with perhaps people who've been out of the workplace for a while, or people who want to change sector and industry, or perhaps people who are really experienced who don't want maybe the senior job that they had, but they've got loads of great experience and can add lots of value. So how do we tap into those, which are often multi-generational talent pools, and and bring them in and therefore deliver more value?
Yeah, because it's not working at the moment, is it? Or there's a lot of companies struggle to find the talent that they need, but they don't. The recruitment processes aren't suitable, or they're not open to new types of people, or the hiring managers or the recruitment people just aren't trained in this either. They don't know how to do it. So, and even if they do get into the company, the managers aren't equipped either. There's a lot of managers who don't have traditional management skills or training. So the traditional management training is probably not fit for purpose anymore.
It's it goes back to that change loop. The change isn't just in the technology. The change is also in the process and the people.
Yeah.
So to be competitive, to reduce waste, to add more value, to tap into new talent, that change is also in the HR department, in the finance department, in the L&D department. It's all of those things are necessary to evolve and to change and to keep pace in order to make the organization more successful. It's not just about sales and tech or customer service and sales and IT and so on. All of those, in inverted commas, back office also need to change and adapt. And a lot of them are. There's some amazing examples, and I've worked with some amazing recruiters. But it's not as widespread as perhaps I would like, especially as my boy's getting older and he's going to be looking for a job in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, it's important. Do you think you're more, well, you will be more aware of this because of your son, and have you taken it upon yourself to learn about this and
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what I knew about autism when my son was diagnosed was I gave money to children in need. That was, so it's when as a parent, when you receive a diagnosis, it's like being parachuted into a foreign country without a map or a compass. But very quickly, you count your blessings. He's not life limited. He hasn't had to have lots of surgeries and so on. So having special needs, again, is a huge it's a spectrum of things. And you learn about it, and the more you learn about it, like any topic, the more you learn about it, the more you can see perhaps what you can do to help, and also where again, I keep using this word value. He's like a lot of his cohort. He's unconventional, but he's got lots to offer, and as a society, I think we should be leveraging what everyone has to offer, because everybody's got something to bring to the party.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, you not only sound like a great leader, which I know you are, but you sound like a great mum as well. So
I don't think we agree.
And I know you do, well, you're learning all the time, keen to learn and continue learning, but you share some good information about these topics on LinkedIn as well, don't you? So
I do, yes, and I'm occasionally asked to speak. So sometimes, I've spoken at some of the Tech Next events and so on about neurodiversity in the workplace and women and so on. So I'm more than happy to ramble on to anybody who wants to listen about the benefits and the opportunities.
Yeah, lovely. Well, definitely encourage anyone who's watching or listening to this to follow you on LinkedIn, and invite you to speak if they can. If they've got an event or they need some advice on this, how they can do better in their organisation. And I know, are you're currently maybe open to new opportunity at the moment? You're looking for your next move, is that right?
I am indeed. I left AXA Assistance just at the end of last year. So I was based in Redhill in Surrey, but I only went down once a month, and they've all gone back to the office 3 days a week. So 6.5 hours each way is a bit of a commute. So I'm looking for something in the northeast ideally, but not necessarily, just not away 3 days a week.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So again, if anyone's watching or listening to this and they want an amazing leader to join the company, then get in touch with Kirsten.
Well, thank you very much.
No, I really enjoyed that. I always enjoy talking to you, and thanks again for doing it.
My pleasure. It's been really lovely. Thanks a lot, Paul. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Kirsten. Bye.